to our colleagues that often level criticisms at those of us who are identifying ways to alleviate the pain on the American people with respect to this law, the so-called Affordable Care Act, I think it bears reminding the importance of continuing the argument, forcefully making the argument about all the pain that it's causing.
Precisely. And a lot of people ask, why all the focus? Why all the energy? Why all the speeches? Because it's important, number one. And number two, it takes the energy, the focus, the time, the prioritization, the resources to convince people, the President included, that this is not the way to go. Now, I think if you were to throw these 7 different bills out there a few years ago when Obamacare passed and said, hey, what are the chances of the President signing this? People would have said, no way. No way it's going to happen. So it's a process. It's a process of making the argument with facts, not through personal attack, with facts. Make the vigorous argument. That's what this body in democracy is about. Make the argument, win the argument, and then repeal or change. And I would mention there are 3 more. H.R. 3630 slashed billions of dollars from some discretionary funds, some slush funds where they had some flexibility. And the President agreed with that. He signed that into law. H.R. 4348 adjusted a drafting error, saved $670 million. And H.R. 8 repealed what was called the CLASS program, Community Living Assistance Services and Supports Program. The former Democratic chairman of the Senate Budget Committee called the CLASS program, quote, a Ponzi scheme of the first order, the kind of thing Bernie Madoff would be proud of, end quote. We saved billions of dollars with the repeal of through H.R. 8. So, to reiterate, there's 7 bills we fought hard for, and every single one of them ultimately were signed into law by the President of the United States. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the biggest change, the most consequential change to Obamacare, the most open and full recognition that the President's health care law is unworkable and problematic and a burden, is the fact that the President himself, just a few weeks ago, on July 2nd, through a blog post, Department of Treasury blog post, said, you know what? I am going to postpone for a year the so-called employer mandate that is one of the key pillars of the Obamacare law. And what is that mandate?
Well, the mandate is that every employer across the United States of America who employs 50 or more persons on a full-time basis must provide government-sanctioned, government-approved health insurance to their employees. Now, look, superficially, that sounds just great. There's some problems here. First, this law redefines full-time in a way that Americans have never understood it. If you were to ask me, what does full-time mean to you? I'd say, growing up in South Arkansas, full-time means
40 hours in a week or more, right? That's a common sense, practical application of what full-time is. Would that be right?
That's
under
what most
Obamacare?
Hoosiers think as well.
Right?
Yeah, I think, I've traveled quite a bit, gotten to know people around the country, and I don't believe I've encountered, I reckon, anyone who thought that full-time was 30 hours. So where did this come from? Out of thin air, presumably.
So the bottom line is the president recognized, and I applaud him for this, I applaud him for recognizing the problem, the burden of his law, particularly the employer mandate. And he said, I'm going to postpone that part of the law. I'm basically going to repeal, in effect, repeal that for a year. Just make that go away for a year as a practical matter. Now, I applaud his recognition that the law has problems. The problem I had with that action is I don't think, still do not believe, the president had the power to do that. If he wants the law changed, should have called Congress. We would have been more than happy to deliver up a bill, send it over to the Senate, that postponed the employer mandate a year. In fact, because of the president doing that, that's precisely what we did. So I introduced H.R. 2667 that does that in legislation, not through a regulatory change, a blog post, but I introduced the Authority for Mandate Delay Act, which we voted on, we passed on this floor. Why? It does the same basic thing, a little bit different, but the same basic thing that the president was doing. And we did it so that what he did would be legal. And you know what? 35 Democrats supported this bill. 35 Democrats supported this bill. And
so essentially,
I applaud them for doing it.